We're about to go on a journey through a beautiful country that basks in a fine tradition of tourism.
We're the 10th worldwide on tourists that we receive. We want to be 5.
But right now, it's going through an intense period of transition. How do you solve a problem like Mexico? This is a country where the contemporary and the ancient, like this Aztec temple, sit cheek by jowl. And it was the ancient Mayan calendar that many have misread to suggest that in 2012, the end of the world is nigh. But there's another way to read the Mayan calendar, as a new beginning, a chance to repaint Mexico's international image, one that's been stained by the escalation in drug-fueled gang violence. So I'm about to wend my way through the heart of Mexico to 2 very different destinations to ask Mexicans and tourists how this country can restore its glorious global reputation. Mexico economically is not in bad shape right now. The latest tourism figures show a year-on-year increase. But those stats mask some deep-lying problems. And my first stop is perhaps the most telling illustration of that, a legendary name.
Acapulco, the sudden new modern holiday place of today.
Life magazine named Acapulco the best resort in the world in 1962 or 1963. He was a very, very nice man, Frank Sinatra, very down-to-earth, very simple guy. She came to Acapulco one time, she was leaving the club, I was holding her hand, and when we walked out of the club and I was holding her hand, there were like 100 flashes. And 3 weeks later, they called my wife and they asked her how did she feel about the affair that I was having with Liz Taylor.
Birds just sing in the trees.
Every day here in Acapulco, everybody will go to the beach during the day, have lunch, have a siesta in the afternoon, go out for dinner, and then go clubbing at night.
Acapulco sure enjoyed its heyday. And so did impresario Tony Ruan. But now, there's a problem. It may not be immediately evident to tourists, but it's reflected in the sizable military and police presence here.
A war over cocaine trafficking is sweeping through Mexico, killing thousands.
The Mexican people are paying the price.
In terms of image, it's not the one that we would like to have, the police and the military out there all the time. But at the very beginning, we don't need that in order to recover the trust of the people they feel safe. And little by little, as we recover the security on the port, they will go back to other places.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is the view that people have when they're dancing on that dance floor of that city at night time.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a view that can only be enjoyed now for 2 nights a week. The clubs had to close down for the other 5 days.
It's very disappointing because you put all your life, you put all your efforts into a destination that is one of the most beautiful bays in the world with guaranteed weather, very nice local people, very warm, and something like this comes to destroy us. So yes, it's very heartbreaking.
It's so sad what happened in Acapulco because it was up to a couple of years ago a very important tourist site for Mexico. And there was this between Acapulco being an area that is important for the traffickers to be able to move their drugs, the fact that there's a lot of drug consumption from the tourists who go to Acapulco, and a series of very corrupt governments.
Tony says the crime rate has fallen since the arrival of federal troops and police into Acapulco. But then there's still the issue of perception, including one about people in his line of work.
There is an understandable connection made, maybe wrongly by journalists, that if you're involved in the club's business scene and there's a big drug scene, that there must be some understanding, a connection, association.
I don't doubt that. That's a general perception. But I personally don't know any club owner that is in the drug business. I mean, you are either in the nightclub business or in the drug business. I don't know what they do with their money because I don't know them personally. But I think that if you're in the drug business, why do you want to get into any other business? You're already into a very profitable business.
Because you can launder money through the clubs and the restaurants, and you can legitimize your business. With this can be the facade of your business.
But when you're talking about the billions of dollars that we hear from England and from the government of the United States and Mexico and Colombia, you're talking about billions and billions of dollars. To put them through a club, I don't think that that's the best place.
But some say tourism is exactly where you'd want to hide away ill-gotten gains.
But at the end of the day, I think tourists will come into a community that, who knows, maybe the hotels are owned by one of these organizations, and they would never know. In fact, they probably will be safer in some of these hotels because, these organizations are going to try to make sure that nothing happens to their business.
In Acapulco, on the other side of the Pacific, Mexican divers have their own spectacular surf sport.
Another world-renowned Acapulco institution, cliff diving shows, held here since the 30s.
Started right here in the 1934. Okay, the beginners, they are not divers. They was fishermen.
Diving was once good to Angel and his family. He started when he was 16, emulating his stepfather.
I speak with him one night and he say, "Are you sure you want to do this? Because it's a very dangerous job. We have broken arms, shoulders, the ears. You get deaf. It's possible you can be blind, guy. Are you sure you want to do this?" I say, "Yes."
Trouble is, nowadays, his business has taken a dive too. Angel, who's now had to take on a second job, says in the heyday, 150 cruise ships would come in every season. That's 18 to 20 a month. Now they're lucky if 2 come in a month.
Yes, we are suffering a lot.
Can you see that one day you might leave?
Yes, I have a possibility, yes.
How will you feel if you have to leave?
Oof.
How do you reassure Angel that his future is going to be better?
Well, doing a smart and intelligent tourist promotion strategy. As much as we work on bringing more tourists to Acapulco, we will have more employments and better employments.
And you think that he will be able to have a full-time job doing diving in the future?
Indeed, of course. That's the objective.
Mexico, where time stands still and where time bounds pulsatingly forward, whichever way you care to look at it.
And right now, a lot of people here do wish time would bound pulsatingly forward.
The international tourists, the North American, the Canadians, they have lost interest in Acapulco.
They're scared, aren't they? Because whether the stories are true or not, they are scared, aren't they?
Probably, but you know something? Probably this year. But the flights, we lost it before. We lost it before the security issue. And this is because Acapulco didn't have an effective promotion strategy. And that's what we are changing it now.
True enough, most people I met on the beach were locals. Mind you, they were proving you can still very much have fun in Acapulco.
Todas las penas, toda la vida y también las abuelitas a la pista.
what better place to capture this view than from up in the air?
He wants a tip. Everybody needs to make a buck these days in Acapulco.
As you can see, this is a great place where you can see all the view of the hotel.
Up in the hills, this family-owned hotel, designed by an architect, 9 years in construction and managed by his niece, was gearing up nicely for the international jet set when it opened 2 years ago. Now it's in danger of becoming a beautiful white elephant.
When we opened up, it was December, which is the peak season. We had a line here waiting to come into the bar. We had at least 400 people waiting. And then the first year it was good, but last year it just dropped off. From really good occupancies to being completely empty.
Mariana has had to lay off workers and pay the remaining half wages. Like Gerardo, who's worked as a waiter since the 80s. And this should have been for him a dream job. Now, after his shift here at El Canto, he's forced to work at night time at a restaurant to provide for his family.
We might be in the necessity of closing.
Really, that might have to happen?
Well, hopefully not, but we are realistic. We don't know how much we can stand this. It's been difficult.
One of Gerardo's neighbours was killed for not giving gang members his car, and taxi drivers he knows have to pay protection money to the cartels just to go about their regular business.
If they don't pay us, sorry, they finish his life.
But for the most part, tourists have not been affected.
I heard a lot of negative publicity at home, and I'm a little shameful of it. I mean, here we are walking down the street. Beautiful. We've been out every night, off the resort. No harm to us whatsoever. Not a scare in the world.
So tourism may be a victim of the drugs war, but for tourists themselves, clearly the real experience is a world away from outside perception. But as we'll find out after the break, there are pockets of Mexico that are going through a massive tourist boom. Find out where and why after the break. Mexico, a country blessed with a fascinating history and culture. A country apparently enjoying a bit of a tourism boom, but also one dogged by a global image problem. Day 4 of my journey through the heart of Mexico, and I'm now heading north from the capital.
Quiero un boleto para San Miguel.
Nicer than most planes I've been in. This is the so-called Golden Corridor of Mexico. San Miguel is a town with a deep sense of its own independence. This man, Ignacio Allende, was one of the leaders of the rebellion against the colonials in the early 19th century. This, the most popular tourism destination inland in Mexico, has three main characteristics: beautiful colonial buildings, lots of expats, and lots of artists. Making muslin for domestic use for the best part of the last century, Aurora was converted into an art space in 2001 by this lady.
It's not the same as you would find in the beach areas, the same kind of crowd. You get the crowd that's more devoted to the arts, the music. We have ex-writers, artists, ex-musicians from their old life. They come here and they carry on.
Established and younger artists thrive in Aurora's unique ambience.
I'm fascinated by this picture.
It's very stimulating, people that come from other places and they enjoy your work.
And Juan says San Miguel has one major advantage over places like Acapulco.
It's not so easy that just a gangster came here and get inserted in the social community as a new businessman, for example, no? So in that terms, the San Miguel Allende is still a small town with a middle class.
A middle class largely made up of some highly qualified expats, devoting their later years to art and the 100+ charities that work out of San Miguel.
Sometimes it feels like every other voice you hear is from North America. As someone said to me, it's more like Mama's apple pie than Mexican beans refried. Then again, all done in the best possible taste. Tell me why you think so many Americans come here.
Well, several reasons. The weather obviously is number one. Two, it's relatively cheaper here than to go to one of the big American resorts. And thirdly, if you have an intellectual curiosity, you want to get away from your everyday life, this is a place where you don't have to travel to southern Italy or for Spain, and you could see it all right here.
The next stamp of approval for San Miguel is that affluent Mexicans are coming here in their droves for their holiday kicks. It all adds up to a very atypical Mexican town, and yet one that is a picture-perfect version of Mexico for tourists. The next phase is to go upmarket, which means big bucks, real estate, and hanging out in places like this.
The Rosewood Hotel and its adjacent villas may look 17th century colonial, but in fact the project, which cost a cool $260 million, has only been open a year.
You know, there's a tradition in our main square, and is that single men would just walk clockwise around the square, and single women would just walk counterclockwise. And that's a way to show that, you know, they're looking for a couple.
The manager insists the hotel is very much integrated into the local community.
Although it looks like a bigger building, like compared to the small houses you can see in San Miguel, we only have 67 rooms. A lot of locals and visitors just gather in the terrace to enjoy the beautiful view and the beautiful sunset in San Miguel de Allende and see how all the lights turn on at night.
I do think they are working to become a part of the community.
But if you saw more and more big hotels opening up here, as this place does become more successful, how would you feel?
Well, as I say, I've been here 40 years, so I've seen a lot of changes. Not totally comfortable with it, because it will change the face of what San Miguel was, but then again, they say it's progress.
And so finally to Mexico City, a teeming megatropolis of 20 million and rising. Culture, modern and old, abounds in the capital. In the grand Zocalo Plaza, one of the biggest in the world, sits Latin America's oldest and largest cathedral. But right now, my mission is to find out how the authorities here are dealing with the present and trying to portray Mexico in a brighter light.
Hi.
And this is the marketing and branding guru charged with altering our collective global mindset. It's a long way from Kellogg's and Diet Coke to rebranding Mexico, though.
I got tired, really, to listen all the bad things that people were saying internationally about Mexico. And I know Mexico, I live in Mexico, and I know that in reality there's little pockets of issues that we have, but not the whole country is like that.
This is my first all-inclusive trip, and I wasn't with my husband. Yeah, I know. Sorry, guy. You got it. If you haven't been to Mexico, you gotta go. You gotta go.
The fact is, there is a real problem
Yes.
with cartels and violence, which is affecting people's decision to come.
Yes. One of the things is that, again, we have some issues. We have over 2,000 municipalities or counties, as they're known in some countries, and only out of those 2,000, 480 have the problems.
It's beautiful. It's the second largest coral reef in the world.
Wow.
And I'd snorkeled before, but this was just so beautiful.
MexicoTaxiProject.com.
The more you spend on advertising, the more tourists you get. It really is that simple. But if you're talking about the overall reputation of the country, that's not subject to marketing because it's not a product for sale. Then you're just doing propaganda, and propaganda doesn't work anymore in the globalized world. You know, this is not Kim Jong-il. You don't control all the channels of information reaching the viewer.
I think media like to communicate more bad news than good news, you know, and I think many times what's been seen is what sells.
I'm so sick and tired of being blamed, of those of us who work in different media outlets in Mexico, for being blamed of Mexico's perception abroad. In fact, I would say that 50% of what's going on in Mexico is not being reported because it's just simply too dangerous.
In fact, journalists in Mexico, according to Reporters Without Borders, are amongst the most threatened and intimidated in the world. Geraldo says this is a wider problem about global markets for drugs and the need for social change.
We need, to a certain extent, more social equality. So the people that might be thinking of becoming bad guys, they might not think about it because they can have other opportunities.
And let's be honest, PR and branding cannot really do that, can it?
PR couldn't create this either. This regular Saturday afternoon event is called a dance-on, a graceful reminder of Mexico of yore. These values haven't gone away. Mexicans of all ages are extremely hospitable.
Mexico's tourism figures may be healthy, but everyone here agrees it's about time this country put its best foot forward to the outside world. That depends an awful lot on grassroots change and also the upcoming elections. Can the next government make the cartels dance to a different tune and therefore change all our perceptions, even the most blinkered, about what is, after all, a beautiful and fascinating country?